Hi, we are going to finish up Piaget's main ideas. Now, I apologize for the abrupt end on the last video. Here's going to be where we pick up. We were talking about equilibration. So one of the big points I want to make about equilibration is that according to Piaget, disequilibrium, that confusion that you feel when you can't understand things, is what drives mental growth. It pushes us to be curious. It makes us want to learn. It is what moves us forward within cognitive development, according to Piaget. So he says teachers should actually actively promote cognitive conflict, and that they should do this to encourage us to want to explore and to construct new meanings. Okay, now let's take a look at this final bit, which is how in the world can we apply his main ideas to teaching? Now in the next set of videos, you may have already done them on Piaget's stages, we also see how his stages can be applied. This is how his main ideas can be applied. So first of all, encourage your students to explore. Encourage them to be curious, to discover things. This relates entirely to his idea of constructivism, that we construct knowledge by interacting with objects in our environment. So have a variety of learning materials. Have a variety of activities for them to use their senses, to use their head, and figure things out. I love this quote over here. Good teaching is more a giving of right questions than giving of right answers. So he would say, in addition to this, don't always give your students the answers. Ask them questions. See if you can elicit the answer to come from them. What else can you do? You want to make sure you're providing lots of hands-on practice, that you're giving them experiences, you're letting them to both engage in constructivism, the discovery of information and the construction of new mental schemas, as well as accommodation, that part of the creating new mental schemas. So by doing these hands-on kinds of activities and practice, you're going to get them to really hone in on those skills and add new schemas. What else can you do? You want to promote cognitive conflict or disequilibrium, like we were just talking about. That idea that if you make them curious, if you present them with information that they don't know how to explain or don't understand, they will then want to learn. So for instance here, an ethical dilemma. So if it's wrong to steal, why is Robin Hood a hero? To make them really think about that and develop deeper understandings. Do you have an example of a time that you've seen a teacher do this? It's not always easy to do, but it's a great thing to add to lessons here and there. The idea of a prompting thought, something that really makes them go, I wonder why that's true, and want to dig deeper. I've got a video example of this from Dead Poets Society. This is the very first day of class, and I think you can see their teacher, Robin Williams, really creates that cognitive conflict where they're all scratching their heads, wondering what's going on.
Gentlemen, open your text, page 21 of the introduction. Mr. Perry, will you read the opening paragraph of the preface, entitled Understanding Poetry?
Understanding Poetry by Dr. J. Evans Pritchard, Ph.D. To fully understand poetry, we must first be fluent with its meter, rhyme, and figures of speech. Then ask two questions. One, how artfully has the objective of the poem been rendered? And two, how important is that objective? Question 1 rates the poem's perfection. Question 2 rates its importance. And once these questions have been answered, determining the poem's greatness becomes a relatively simple matter. If the poem's score for perfection is plotted on the horizontal of a graph, and its importance is plotted on the vertical, then calculating the total area of the poem yields the measure of its greatness.
So you can see here, so far it looks like a regular old class. He's reading the introduction, they're taking their notes, but keep listening.
A sonnet, on the other hand, would score high both horizontally and vertically.
Excrement. That's what I think of Mr. J. Evans Pritchard. We're not laying pipe. We're talking about poetry. How can you describe poetry like American Bandstand? Well, I like Byron. I give him a 42, but I can't dance to it. Now, I want you to rip out that page.
Look at the looks on their faces.
Rip out the entire page. You heard me. Rip it out. Rip it out! Go on. Rip it out! Thank you, Mr. Dalton. Gentlemen, tell you what, don't just tear out that page, tear out the entire introduction. Armies of academics going forward, measuring poetry. No! We will not have that here. No more, Mr. J. Evans Pritchard. Now, my class, you will learn to think for yourselves again. You will learn to savor words and language.
Now you can see that by the end of that moment that these students have realized, okay, something very different is happening here. This is not my typical literature class. He has their attention. He has them curious. He has them wanting to learn more. Let's continue. So again, this makes them curious. This motivates them to learn, and they're going to learn through accommodation. And remember, accommodation is that deeper kind of learning where they're creating new understandings. And that's it. So again, it was just a small portion that had been missing from the first video. So please make sure you add this to your notes. I hope this is helpful. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.